Section 1. Jefferson takes office. Background knowledge. In Chapter 4, we learned how the Federalists controlled the national government until the election of 1800. As a result of this election, the new Republican administration of Thomas and Jefferson reversed Federalist policies. This led to what Jefferson called the Revolution of 1800. Republicans take charge. Margaret Smith attended the inauguration of Thomas Jefferson as President of the United States in March 1801. After the inauguration, she wrote a letter explaining how proud she was of the United States. In other countries, the transfer of power usually involved confusion and bloodshed. However, in our happy country, that transfer was peaceful and orderly. A bitter campaign. The presidential election of 1800 was viciously contested. The Federalists raised the prospect of civil war if Jefferson were elected. Republicans accused John Adams of wanting to create a monarchy. By receiving 73 electoral votes, Jefferson defeated Adams. According to the Constitution, the person who received the next highest total of electoral votes would be vice president. However, Aaron Burr, Jefferson's running mate, also received 73 votes. It was up to the House of Representatives to decide who would be president. For 6 days, the House was deadlocked. On the 36th vote, Jefferson won the election. To avoid the situation in the future, the 12th Amendment to the Constitution changed how electors voted. Beginning in 1804, electors would vote separately for president and vice president. Jefferson's inauguration. Thomas Jefferson was the first president to be inaugurated in Washington, D.C., the country's new capital. Jefferson believed the government should have simple customs. To make the point, he walked to his inauguration instead of riding in a fancy carriage. He also ended the custom of people bowing to the president. Instead, they just shook his hand. Jefferson used his inaugural address to bring a divided country together. He told the American people, "Let us, then, fellow citizens, unite with one heart and one mind. Every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We are all Republicans. We are all Federalists." Jefferson charts a new course. Jefferson thought of his election as the Revolution of 1800. Jefferson's first goal as president was to limit the federal government's power over states and citizens. The new president thought that under Washington and Adams, the federal government had become too involved in economic affairs. He believed in the idea known as laissez-faire, from the French term for let alone. Laissez-faire means that the government should not interfere in the economy. New Republican policies. Jefferson put his laissez-faire ideas into practice when he reduced the number of people in government. He fired all tax collectors and cut the number of U.S. diplomats. Larger cuts came from shrinking the military. Jefferson cut the Army's budget in half, reducing the Army's size from 4,000 to about 2,500 soldiers. At the same time, Jefferson eliminated all federal taxes inside the country. Now, most tax revenue came from the tariff on imported goods. The Sedition Act was another of Jefferson's targets. A number of people had been convicted and fined under the act. Jefferson ordered those fines refunded. Those imprisoned under the Sedition Act were released. Federalist policies remain. Jefferson could not reverse all Federalist policies. He believed that the United States had to keep repaying its national debt. He also did not fire most of the Federalist office holders. He said they could keep their jobs if they did them well and they were loyal citizens. The Supreme Court and judicial review. One Federalist who did not keep his job was Judge William Marbury. Adams had appointed Marbury and several other judges in the last hours before he left office. The Republicans argued that these appointments were aimed at maintaining Federalist power. When Jefferson took office, he ordered James Madison, his Secretary of State, to cease work on the appointments. Marbury then sued Madison, citing the Judiciary Act of 1789. This gave the Supreme Court the power to review cases brought against a federal official. The outcome of the case never changed or forever changed the relationship of the three branches of government. In his ruling, Chief Justice John Marshall spoke for a unanimous court. He ruled that the Judiciary Act of 1789 was unconstitutional. Marshall stated that the court's powers came from the Constitution, not from Congress. Therefore, Congress did not have the right to give power to the Supreme Court in the Judiciary Act. Only the Constitution could do that. The court's actual decision that it could not help Marbury gain his commission was not highly significant. What was important was Marshall used the case to establish judiciary review, the authority of the Supreme Court to strike down any unconstitutional laws. Looking back and ahead, Thomas Jefferson had long argued that the federal government's powers were limited to what was set down in the Constitution. The Constitution did not specifically give the government the power to buy land from a foreign country. In the next section, we will read of Jefferson's dilemma when France offered to sell the United States the huge territory known as Louisiana.